Hi there. I got feedback on my third novel, so let's talk about it. Hi, if you're new, I'm Freya, and this is my AuthorTube writing content channel where I talk about all things my projects and writing, and also love to hear about how your writing is going and reading and all that stuff. So yeah, for those of you who are brand new and you haven't seen my face before, or heard anything about this project, this is my third novel. It's called High Quality Man. It is a kind of upmarket, I think it's in the upmarket genre, which is like kind of like book club fiction, like between literary and just a normal fiction novel. Normal, what does that even mean? Anyway, but it's centered around a character who hosts a podcast that caters to the manosphere, and is kind of him getting his come up, like a full face reflection on what he's actually doing. Because I think in order to do that kind of a job, you have to be pretty disconnected from the impact of what you're saying. But anyway, that's the concept. And I started the first draft in November of last year and finished it 5 months. I can't do the math, but it was like 190 days or just over 6 months to write the first draft. And here it is. And it has been marked up, and my critique partner has given me feedback on it. So I thought this would be more of a sit down chatty video where I share some of that feedback with you, and maybe this helps you in your own writing, or maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Maybe you find it gratifying to know that, everyone needs feedback on their work. Spoiler, shock, horror. Everyone needs feedback on their work. No one gets the first draft perfect the first time. And there are things to change and things to improve on, but also things that you do well in a first draft. And it's nice when you have a critique partner who can call those things out and kind of mention them to you, because it gives you a little boost. And I certainly have one of those. He's very positive. He sent me a couple of text messages while he was reading through the manuscript, and I thought I'd start by sharing those with you, because it's kind of nice to say, well, they're more praisey than his overall feedback, and it's nice to share praise out loud and kind of hear it said again for myself, not just read it from a text message. So the first one is, I've read 7 chapters up to page 53. It's great. I love Ghost Natalie. Ghost Natalie is a character who kind of appears to my main character, Tyler, as a kind of vision, conscience kind of, there's a mechanism in the story of how she appears, but I don't want to give that away. But she's kind of just like a sounding board, but more than a sounding board, because she's very opinionated. So she kind of argues with him and pushes back on his beliefs, and kind of sparks change in that way, I guess. So it's got forward momentum. It's funny. It's real. I even care more about Tyler. It's off to a fabulous start. And then a few days later, I got this message. I just wanted to let you know I read more yesterday, and I'm up to chapter 15, or about halfway through. I'm loving it. It's compelling. Everything works, though the return to the podcast chapter is especially beautifully done. And then a few days after that, I got this message. I have 3 chapters to go, or about 30 pages. I was surprised where you took it. it was certainly interesting. It feels like it's building to a significant ending. There are more typos in the second half. Whoops. So it's taking me longer. It's still compelling, just different, sadder, which is a good thing. And then I got a final message. I have one more chapter to go. I love what you've done with it. It's really satisfying. And then yesterday, after he finished reading the last little bit of it, we met up and talked through what he thought. And kind of his feedback was, so the meat of the book, the majority of it, was working for him. The kind of the pacing, what happens, the flow of events, all those things he kind of thought were really solid and definitely worked. And then, hang on, I kind of need to go back in my head. So I'm just going to pause here and jump back in when I have what he said kind of phrased, because I feel like I'm not talking fluently. Okay, we are back. So one of the other things he said was that over the course of the novel, you really come to care about Tyler. You kind of start the novel in a place of really thinking he's an asshole and being really against him and really disliking him. And the things that happen make you kind of feel for him in a way, and kind of, it sneaks up. And the thing that surprised him about it was how much this kind of snuck up on him over the course of the novel. And I think I also felt that writing it in a way. When you write a character for a novel-length project, you spend a lot of time with them. And I think that was something that snuck up on me too, was that over the course of the novel, I really did sort of start to root for Tyler more. And it was like, it's hard to write a character you dislike, and write disliking them for, over 200 pages. So that was something he said about it. Overall, the plot worked. He liked what happened, how it happened. He said at a sentence level, and this is something he always says to me, that certain things did trip him up. Like, he thinks it needs like a slow going through at a line level in terms of an edit, and kind of really fine-tooth combing it and making sure I say everything in the best way, which, is a challenge. And you don't always hear everything in the best way when you're putting it down for a first draft. You might be listening to the beats of the story and not the particular notes you're tapping on the keys of the piano, if that makes sense. Like, you're listening to the overall movement of the music, but you're not listening to should this note be a C or a B? I don't know whether that makes sense or not, but that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. And then he said, so I do this thing with the ending. The novel's told predominantly in first person, but in the final chapter, I kind of zoom out from a more macro lens and look at the effect of something Tyler's done on someone, and I tell that chapter in third person. And he said because of the change, he felt like I kind of needed something at the start that was in third person, so it doesn't break the code that I've established. So there's a balance between the start and the end. And when he said that initially, I was kind of a bit thrown by it, because I didn't really know what I would do for the start of the novel. How the thing that happens at the end is very specific, and you can't like it's really hard. It was hard to like extrapolate or get my head in the perspective. And we kind of talked through it, and he's like, you could have statistics, you could have just like something that contextualizes the novel a bit, something that introduces the manosphere. And as we talked more about it, like I kind of saw where he was coming from, and I kind of came up, I have an idea now of what I'm going to do with that when I come to edit this book over the next few weeks and stuff. So I'm going to give what his suggestion was a try, because that was the one major like new stuff editing suggestion he made. Like he didn't want anything else changed. It was just that balancing that needed to kind of be resolved and resolved and kind of balanced out, and kind of weigh the scales evenly from the start of the book to the end of the book. So yeah, that was kind of the gist of the feedback I got on this third novel. And now I'm going to put the camera down for a second, because I film on my phone and my arm is kind of complaining a little. And then when I pick back up, I'm gonna go through what my plan is and the next steps I have for editing this book. Okay, no time at all has passed for you, but time has passed for me, and I'm back to tell you my plan. So my first task is to go through all the individual, I don't know whether you can see notes on these pages. There's not that many. It kind of, okay, no, you can't. But trust me, there's individual notes on the pages of the book. So I'm going to go through very slowly and kind of work on all those little things. Some of them are typos, some of them are, like word choice, checking if things are hyphenated. Some of them are sentences that don't quite flow nicely, and I'm going to refine all of those. And then once I do that pass, I am going to read the novel aloud, which I imagine will take quite a bit of time. And as I read aloud, if there's something that doesn't flow nicely off the palate of the mouth, doesn't like flow nicely in speech, then I'm going to take that as a sign that it needs to be refined. And I'm going to use that pass as my kind of like line level refining pass. And then after that, I'm going to have a go at writing that initial new first chapter scene to kind of frame the novel nicely between the two ends. So the third person at the end has a third person at the start, and then you have the first person narrative throughout that's from Tyler's perspective. So it kind of sits in a balanced way. And I think in terms of that, like, he didn't say it was crucial, but he just said for him, like, it would have made the ending sit a little better. So, in the interest of making it feel balanced from a narrative perspective, I'm just going to try it out and see if it works. And if not, I can ditch that start and keep the start I have. But I am going to try and write it and have a go at it. And I have an idea. So that is my kind of 3-step process. And I think I'm going to do all of these steps one after another before I go back to Untitled Project Untitled, that kind of is sitting in my drafts right now and has 8,000 words written. Before I go back and do any more of that, I'm going to have a really solid, detail-oriented, I guess, two passes through this maybe it'll be more. I don't know. We'll see. But that is what you'll be seeing over the next few weeks in my videos. I just wanted to kind of have this sit down, chatty update of feedback and kind of what the plan is going forward. And that is pretty much all I have to say. So I would love it if you have writing news to share with me or like news to share with me, leave me a comment. Let me know how your own creative project's going. I can't stress this enough. I love hearing about it. It makes me feel like, we're writing buddies, and that is just so cool. So, yeah. Okay, that's gonna be all. Okay, bye.